Hello students, I am Cynthia Kasi from the Department of Life Sciences, Indian Academy Degree College Autonomous, and today we will be learning about water pollution. Let's get to the basics. How is water formed and where do we find water? So we know that water is in all the water surfaces on the earth such as rivers, lakes, streams and oceans. Now, due to the sun's rays and the heat of the sun, this water gets evaporated and moves up, which forms clouds. These clouds get heavier, and then after some point, they get so heavy that they condense and precipitate. Precipitation is where they release this water from the clouds and we get rainfall. So, this is called as water cycle. This is how water from the earth's surface form clouds and again come back in the form of rain. But when all this happens, sometimes this water gets contaminated or get release of toxins because of the various activities that takes place on the earth, either human activity or natural activity. Now, when this certain harmful substances like chemicals, toxins, or even microorganisms contaminate these sources of water, such as the rivers, lakes, and the streams, and they degrade the quality of this water by introducing toxics to this water that affects the humans and the environment. Now, this is called as water pollution. Now, there are different reasons why or sources of water pollution. Let's look into them. Let us start from the domestic homes. So we have gardens, we have the waste which we separate and segregate outside. So the gardens that are there around our house or the agricultural practices, because of the pesticides, fertilizers that we use, there are certain chemicals that are released out. The chemicals can be nitrates, sulfates, phosphates, which are released out. Even our wet waste from our homes, the domestic waste that are released out, contains these chemicals, including our sewage. Because of our excreta that is released out, these chemicals are introduced into the groundwater. This groundwater comes out, and when they come out into the surface of the earth, again get evaporated and they form clouds, and they released in the form of rains or acid rains on the earth's surface. Now, the other source that we are talking about is the factories. Now, we know that factories release gases outside. Similarly, they release certain water or excretes out in the form of water, which are these chemicals and other forms which are harmful for the environment. They do treat water that comes out according to the government, but not all companies or industries follow. And if they do, there are certain chemicals and which is released out into the environment that can be harmful. Now, a small quantity is what the industry would say, but they get accumulated over a period of time. When the factory is running for 10 years, 15 years, these same chemicals get bioaccumulated or accumulated outside and they get released into the groundwater. So that becomes toxins to the environment. The next one is the landfills or the toxic waste that comes out because of the work that is happening on the earth's surface, such as buildings that are coming up, factories that are coming up. So when you dig the soil and loosen the soil, these toxins which are present or the waste that is present on the earth's surface get inside the soil and they reach the groundwater. Sometimes even the petroleum leaks and other gases that are released from these petroleums like diesel, petrol from the petrol tanks get accumulated in the groundwater. Lastly, whatever waste that we release gets into the municipalities where they are being treated and they release the water for a safe levels. Now, what happens is these municipal treatment plants will have certain chemicals which are present along with the waste that we release into them, either through our solid waste, wet waste, and so on. Now, when they burn that wet waste, they release certain fluorines and fluorides into the environment. And after the safe limit, like I said in the industries, they are being treated. But because of this treated water, they're not disposed. Sometimes they get accumulated in certain areas or they're not disposed in correct levels outside. That time this accumulation of these chemicals in one area happens. Again it seeps down into the groundwater and contaminates water. Now these are the different sources of water pollution or potential sources of water pollution or contaminations in the water. Now this can affect our environment and our health. So when these untreated effluents of water comes released into as polluted water outside, they affect the plants, the animals, and us humans. Now into plants, how do they affect? First one, the growth. So the growth itself gets hindered either through chloroform, which we know which is a pigment. So it inhibits the chloroform synthesis in the plants itself. So if chloroform is not there, it can't absorb sunlight. If there's no sunlight, the plant cannot grow. So we know that sunlight, water, and soil are the three major sources for good plants to grow. So if there is no chlorophyll, you can't absorb sunlight. If there's no sunlight, there wouldn't be good levels of photosynthesis. So there won't be food for the plants, and overall growth and development of the plant gets affected. The second one is these polluted waters can affect the water bodies that are present inside the water, like fishes and other plants and the flora and the fauna. Now what happens to these fishes itself is that the oxygen level gets depleted. Now because of these toxins present in the water, the level of oxygen gets reduced and the biological oxygen demand gets hindered. So biological oxygen demand is where biological living things require oxygen for its growth, and that level which is required for the growth gets depleted. That's why we call that as a biological oxygen demand. The second one which happens is the toxicity and bioaccumulation. Like I said, now if there's any metal or any toxins, for example, magnesium is good for our body. Magnesium is present in the fishes also. We consume that through fishes. But if this same magnesium reaches a higher end of its level, it becomes toxin. And that leads to bioaccumulation. So the same metal which is good for our body, when it's at a higher concentration, becomes bad or toxin. So that is the accumulation of the same metal into the water bodies that these fishes consume and take, and that leads to the toxicity. So magnesium toxicity in the fishes. And that same fish, if we take, higher levels of magnesium enter into our body. Aesthetic degradation is nothing but the breaking of the beautiful fauna and flora that is present in the water bodies. It hinders their growth and overall degradation of that happens. Example, corals. We know that corals are growing because of this metals that are deposited on the rocks. Now that will get affected and gets contaminated. So the flora gets damaged because of this toxins that are present in the water. Now what can we do? We can prevent water pollution to a certain extent. The first means is we do not litter. We make sure that we segregate waste in our homes. We use the segregated wet waste to form compost, and only the dry waste which we cannot dispose, we can send it to the municipality. So we can avoid by not littering in our house, using less water. For showers, we use a bucket rather than the shower, okay? And then while brushing, we turn off the taps. While applying soap for our faces, we can turn off the taps and not let the running water flow through and waste water. Dispose oil properly. Now we know that oil doesn't dissolve in water. So when the oil is present on the water, it doesn't allow any particles or gases that are present inside the water to escape out. So similarly, if there are toxins inside the water, it cannot escape out. It gets accumulated because of this water layer that is present on top. So we need to dispose these oils that are present, or the oil droplets that are present on the water. So dispose them properly. Do not mix them with the water or flush them with the water and detergents. Next, we should avoid using chemical-based detergents and move to more herbal-based detergents, because these chemical-based detergents in our laundry and in our household, they get mixed with the water and they release into the sewage, and it gets difficult for removing these chemicals from the water waste. So we use more herbal-based, so decomposition happens easy and it enters into the earth safely. Reduce plastic. Use less plastic and reuse plastic, so that there's not much plastic that has been entering into the litter of the environment. Lastly, we need to don't dispose items down the toilets, like our tissue papers, our sanitary pads, thereby not clogging the sewage system and not accumulating these waste into the sewage, which gets difficult for its treatment and release into the environment. So these are the small domestic ways in which we stand responsible and prevent water pollution in our surroundings. So each of us can make a difference. So let us take the responsibility in our hands and protect our water for us and for our future generations. Thank you.